Welcome back to Learn English Naturally. Are you ready to dive into something delicious?
I think everyone is ready for that.
Today we're taking you to a restaurant,
Ooh,
but not for the food.
okay.
Well, we are going to be talking about food,
Right.
but our main focus today is to equip you with all the English you need to navigate a restaurant like a tro.
We are going to be looking very closely at an English lesson that focuses on vocabulary and phrases.
Ooh, fun.
And even some cultural tips that can make your dining experience better.
I love it.
Think of this as your guide to ordering, asking questions, and handling different situations confidently in English.
So let's get started with like a typical scenario. You walk into a restaurant.
Okay.
You're excited to try something new. What's the very first thing that happens?
You're probably going to be greeted by the host, and they might ask you a question like, how many people? Or do you have a reservation?
Right. And that's where our source material really jumps in.
Yeah.
It emphasizes that it's so important to communicate clearly
Yeah.
right from the start.
Yeah.
Those first couple of sentences are so important for a smooth, positive dining experience.
Like, table for two, please?
Perfect.
Or, I have a reservation under your name.
Excellent. And once you're seated, it's time to explore the menu.
Yes, but we're not just going to be talking about basic vocabulary like appetizer or main course.
Right.
We're going to help you with some of the nuances of language.
Okay.
Like, for example, the difference between I'd like and I'll have when ordering.
Oh, I've always wondered about that.
Yeah,
I feel like those can both be used to order something.
they can.
So is there really a difference?
There is I'd like is a little more formal and polite.
Okay.
It more suggests a preference instead of a demand.
Oh, I see.
So you could say something like, I'd like the grilled salmon, please.
Okay.
That sounds a bit more refined than, I'll have the grilled salmon.
Interesting.
It just shows that you are paying attention to the etiquette of dining.
Right. It's more polite.
Yes. And speaking of etiquette, our source material has a sample dialogue that shows a typical restaurant interaction.
Ooh, fun.
It's kind of like you're eavesdropping on a conversation between a waiter and a customer.
I love it.
But why don't we break down that dialogue?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so it starts with the waiter greeting the customer and asking a common question. Can I get you something to drink?
Simple.
And the customer responds with, yes, I'd like a glass of water and an iced tea, please.
Oh, so they're using that more formal phrasing.
Exactly. And notice how they add please at the end.
Right.
Politeness is so key in any interaction, but especially at a restaurant.
Yes, it shows respect.
Yes.
Now, I really like what the customer does next.
Okay.
They say, what's today's special?
Ah, yes, such a good question.
That's such a good question to ask, especially if you're feeling a little indecisive.
It shows that you're open to trying something new.
Right.
You might even discover a hidden gem on the menu.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does the waiter say?
The waiter responds with, today we have grilled salmon with roasted vegetables.
Okay, so nice and clear and concise description of the dish.
Exactly. And you want to really pay attention to how they describe the dish.
Okay.
Using those adjectives like grilled and roasted.
Right, so we're learning phrases,
Yes.
but we're also expanding our vocabulary when it comes to food and cooking.
It's all interconnected.
I love it.
And the customer, clearly enticed by the description, says, sounds great, I'll have that. Could I also get a side of bread?
Okay, so there are a couple things to point out here.
Yes.
The customer uses a slightly more informal phrase, I'll have that,
Yeah.
to place their order.
Yeah, they're a little bit more comfortable with the waiter now.
Okay.
They've made a decision.
They've decided.
Yeah, and then they make an additional request using a polite phrase, could I also get?
Right. It's all about being polite
Yes.
and using the right phrasing so you don't sound demanding.
Exactly. It's like a little linguistic dance.
I like that.
You know the steps, and it makes the whole experience so much better, smoother.
I love it.
Yeah. And so that brings us to the end of the first part of this dialogue breakdown.
Wow.
We've seen how these simple phrases can be used in different ways to create a natural and polite interaction.
Right. We've explored I'd like and I'll have.
Yes.
We've learned how to ask for recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
And we even practiced making additional requests.
But this is just the beginning.
Ooh.
In the next part of our deep dive, we'll delve into more specific scenarios, tackle some tricky pronunciation points, and uncover some fascinating cultural insights related to dining.
Welcome back to Learn English Naturally. We're breaking down how to dine out in English like a pro.
We just talked about how even simple phrases can make such a big difference.
Right. Politeness is key.
Exactly.
So in this part,
Yeah.
let's talk about some specific situations you might encounter at a restaurant
Okay.
and how to handle them confidently in English.
Sounds good. Our source material has some really good examples.
Okay.
And we're going to start with dessert.
Ooh, dessert.
Yes.
My favorite part of the meal.
So
Yeah.
imagine the waiter comes up to your table
Right.
and asks, would you like to see the dessert menu?
Okay, so if I'm feeling adventurous,
Mm-hmm.
I might say, yes, please. What do you recommend?
Perfect. That's a great way to open up the conversation
Right.
and get some tips from the waiter.
Okay.
They might say, our chocolate lava cake is very popular.
Oh, yeah.
Or the cheesecake is homemade and absolutely divine.
Oh, I love cheesecake. Okay, and if I'm feeling really confident
Yeah.
and I know I can pronounce it correctly,
Yeah.
I might even ask about the chef's specialty.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That shows you're really interested in the food.
Right. Okay, so once I've made my decision,
Yes.
I could say something like, I'll have the cheesecake, please.
Perfect.
Or
Yeah.
I'm going to try the lava cake. It sounds amazing.
Sounds great.
Okay, so.
All right, so let's move on
Yeah.
to a little bit of a trickier situation,
Okay.
making changes to a dish.
Oh, like
Uh.
if you have a dietary restriction.
Exactly, or an allergy, or maybe you just want your food prepared a certain way.
Right.
This is where communication is key.
Okay.
And our source has some helpful phrases.
Okay.
Like, for example, if you're a vegetarian, you could say, can I have the pasta without the meat sauce, please?
Okay, simple and to the point.
Yeah, and you can use the same structure for other adjustments, too.
Okay, give me an example.
Could I get the salad dressing on the side?
Okay,
Or is it possible to have the fish grilled instead of fried?
perfect. So you're basically just stating your preference
Yes,
clearly and politely.
exactly.
Okay, so speaking of preferences,
Yes.
our source material also mentions something about tipping,
Yeah.
which I know is different in every culture.
It can be very confusing.
Yeah.
It varies a lot across cultures.
So what does it say about tipping?
Well, in the United States,
Okay.
it's normal to leave a tip of 15 to 20%.
Okay, 15 to 20%.
Yes, of the total bill
For good service.
for good service. And this is something that English learners might not know about.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always wondered, is it just a reward
Yeah.
for good service, or is there more to it?
It's very complicated. It's
Yeah.
historical, it's economical.
Oh, wow.
In the U.S., tipping is a big part of the server's income.
Okay.
It helps to supplement their wages.
Oh, I see. So it's not just about showing your appreciation, but
Right.
it's also helping them make a living.
Exactly. And understanding this can make your whole dining experience better.
Right.
It shows that you are aware of the local customs.
Okay, now before we finish this section, I want to go back to pronunciation.
Yes.
Because our source material mentioned a couple of words
Okay.
that a lot of English learners have trouble with.
Yeah.
And one of them is water.
Oh, yes. Water.
Right.
It seems simple, but it can be tricky.
Because there's a difference between how Americans say it and how British people say it.
Right. So in British English, it's water.
Okay, water.
And in American English, it's more like water.
Water. Okay.
And it can be confusing
Yeah.
because sometimes you hear one and sometimes you hear the other one.
Right. And it's good to be aware of these regional differences.
Yes. It can help you understand different accents
Right.
and adapt your own pronunciation.
Okay. And there was another word that the source mentioned,
Oh, yes.
which was
Iced tea,
iced tea.
a classic summertime beverage.
Yes. How do we make sure we're pronouncing that one correct?
The most important thing is to make sure that you're pronouncing the T at the
Okay.
end of iced.
Okay.
It's iced tea, not iced tea.
Iced tea.
Okay. It makes all the difference.
Got it. Okay, so before we move on to the last part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
let's just recap what we talked about.
We talked about how to handle specific situations.
Right.
Like ordering dessert and making modifications to dishes.
We talked about tipping.
Yes.
We talked about pronunciation.
And we've really seen how clear communication and polite phrasing
Mm-hmm.
can enhance your dining experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And make you feel so much more confident using English.
But the learning doesn't stop here.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
In the next part, we'll talk about some really fun, practical ways to practice
Okay.
your restaurant English.
I love it. Welcome back to Learn English Naturally. We've been having so much fun talking about dining out in English.
Yes, we have. We've covered a lot of ground.
We've gone over essential vocabulary. We've learned key phrases.
Yes.
We even talked about tipping and pronunciation.
But as they say, practice makes perfect.
All right.
So in this final part,
Okay.
we are going to switch from theory to application.
I like it.
How can we actually use what we've learned?
Yes, let's make this learning stick.
Let's make it stick.
Okay, so what does our source material suggest?
Well, one of the most effective techniques is repetition.
Okay.
You want to take those phrases that we've been talking about
Yeah.
and practice saying them out loud.
Okay.
Pay attention to your pronunciation.
Right.
Pay attention to your intonation.
So we're not just reading the dialogue.
Yeah.
We're actually saying it.
Yes. Imagine yourself in a restaurant,
Okay.
placing an order,
Okay.
asking for a recommendation, making a request.
Got it. Okay, so like,
Yeah, why don't you try?
Yeah.
I'd like to see the dessert menu, please.
I'd like to see the dessert menu, please. How did I do?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Your pronunciation was clear,
Okay.
and you used a very polite tone.
Thank you. Okay. Can I try another one?
Yes, try. Could you tell me about the chef's specials?
Could you tell me about the chef's specials? I think I'm getting more confident already.
That's great to hear.
Okay.
So let's take it up another notch.
Okay.
The source suggests a fun activity,
Okay.
role-playing.
Ooh, I love role-playing.
I know, me too.
It's like putting on a little play.
Exactly. So grab a friend or a family member and
Yeah.
take turns being the waiter and the customer.
I love it.
You can use the dialogue we've been working with or create your own scenarios. So fun. And you can add your own personality into it.
Yeah.
It's like, what if I don't have a partner to practice with?
Well, in that case, you can always record yourself.
Ooh, the solo version.
Yeah.
I kind of like that because then you can listen back
All right.
to your pronunciation.
Exactly. You can really hear where you need to improve.
Right. And you can track your progress.
Yeah, it's like having a language coach in your pocket.
Right. You could even record yourself like ordering takeout over the phone
Yes.
or making a reservation online.
So many possibilities.
I love it.
Now, the source also encourages us to think about
Okay.
the types of restaurants
Okay.
we might want to go to
Right.
and the dishes we might encounter.
Like, for example, if I'm planning a trip to Italy,
Mhm.
I should probably brush up on my Italian food vocabulary
Exactly.
so I can order confidently.
Yes. You could practice saying things like pizza margherita, per favor,
Wow.
or vorrei un piatto di pasta alla carbonara.
I'm getting hungry.
Me too. But before we all run off to our favorite restaurants,
Yes.
let's just take a moment to think about what we learned today.
We started with some very basic phrases and vocabulary,
Right.
and now we're confidently navigating different scenarios,
Yes.
practicing our pronunciation, and even exploring regional cuisines.
It's amazing what you can learn when you break things down,
Yes.
step by step.
It feels much more manageable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it doesn't end here.
No.
We have to keep practicing.
Yes. The key is to keep using what you've learned.
So next time you're at a restaurant,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to use your English.
Order that appetizer. Ask for a recommendation.
Right.
Have a conversation with your waiter.
You might surprise yourself
You might.
with how much you know.
You really might.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us for another deep dive into English.
It's been my pleasure.
And thank you for listening to Learn English Naturally.
Don't forget to subscribe.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.